Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Kyle, the Angry Soccer Guy, is here for another video. I'm going to walk you through how a youth player, can unleash the beast to get to a higher level. And this might be one of my best, if not the best. I know I said that the other day, but lives and videos that I've ever done or audios that you're going to listen to. And I'm going to walk you through the process of how I've actually taken, this is about one player, but groups of players that I have, I'll use the word developed. It's all part of the process, though. One person can't. I will say this: one person cannot develop a player from 9 to 18 years old. I don't believe it. I think there can be a significant impact, obviously over a span of years. But for one guy to take a player from 9 to 18 to become a pro, the chance of that is so small. Doesn't mean there's an exception. Sure, there can be an exception to every rule. However, I'm going to walk you through how I did it. It may work for you. It may not for you. It's just what I've used. So I'm going to show you how you do that. And I call it unleashing the beast here. Okay, so we call it the Unleashing the Beast, the player development blueprint. This is how we did it, and you're going to be seeing that process here in a moment. Okay, now who am I? If you're new to this, or if you're new to listening to me, or if you've listened to me multiple times, this is just a recap. Kyle Wilson, also known as the Angry Soccer Guy. I'm going to quickly walk you through what I've done recently. Played NCAA Division II college. I played semi-professionally in France, so I was getting quote-unquote paid to play. Not a lot, but I was getting paid to play. I represented the U.S. men's national team at the 2019 Futsal World Cup in Misiones, Argentina. I have trained multiple professional players, but Luis Nani, I have trained Cauã Bazil. He's the generational talent coming out of Brazil right now, worth $3.5 million from Nike. I've trained Benji Michel, Dom Dwyer, Tesho Akindele. I mean, tons of players. The list goes on. But the point is, and I will highlight, I don't have every single answer. But what I will show you is how I developed, using that quote, I developed a player to become a beast. Okay? And we're going to kind of look at what this means, how it impacts your son or daughter's development, how we did it, and I'm going to show you much of that and more. Okay, so this is the kid. This is me. This is Nick. His name is Nick. This is right before he signed for a European club. It's called Apoel, which is in Cyprus. This is him signing. This is him holding the contract at the academy or at the first team center. And this is him playing for the academy. He's been there since basically 2019, 2020 is when he first got over there. So he's been there for a number of years. He's a 2007, currently playing U19. Okay, so the kid has tons of potential. There's some big things that are happening in his direction, which is awesome. But this is me with him shortly before he signed, and I worked with him for 2.5 years. Okay, now, this is how he went from a Division III level in Orlando, Florida, and starting at 9 years old, to have the level to join a pro club in Europe. And this is the key distinction here. And he did this at 12 years old. Okay? So I want to highlight the verbiage here, though. To have the level to join a pro club in Europe. So the key thing is the level, right? So do you have the ability to do so? He did have a European passport. So him and his family did have it because they were from Cyprus. And he joined at 12 years old. Okay, so I had him when he was 9. I developed him from a Division III level to a pro academy level, to have the level to play for a pro club in Europe. And he left at 12 years old. Okay, so we're looking at the Nick blueprint. Okay, very simple. Here's the formula of what we did. Okay, so that's why I have a little math equation here, just for reference. So we did 4 training sessions a week. We worked from 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. Hour and a half. Highly competitive training, winner takes all approach. On repeat, 4 times a week. So you're probably wondering, like, you're trying to put all this together. Was it individual sessions? Was it group sessions? But he said winner takes all. There's a lot of stuff that you could probably gather or gain from this. But here, you can see we had 6 players in a training group. This is important to note. 6 players. So 4 days a week, 6 players trained together in the morning from 6:30 to 8 before school. Okay? This allowed us to have games from 1v1 to 3v3. That's important to note. Highly competitive training. So I said in the slide before, winner takes all. Re-emphasizing, highly competitive training. These kids are on each other's throats. And by throat, I mean like they were going at it every single day because they wanted to be better than the player they were with. Okay? So again, winner takes all approach. Now, what did we do? Well, this is what this slide is going to highlight. What we did, how we did it, and why. So I already told you the session was an hour and a half, 4 days a week, and there were 6 players. You can start like piecing this together a little bit of how we did it. But here you can see, we did 45 minutes every day to an hour of technique training. Okay, so phase one of this is what we did. Core skill, what I call master the ball. Phase two, dribbling. So changes of direction, escape moves, stops and starts, fakes and feints, and then complex skill. Okay, this is all dribbling. You can see we did this in order. 1v1 implementation, the how, the why, the when, and the where to use skill. So what this essentially means from dribbling to 1v1 escape moves, so using these two, core skill and dribbling, what I have noticed is a lot of places will train the kids in these two categories, but then they skip the implementation. So example would be, if I have the ball and I'm attacking a defender, why, how, when do I use a skill? So for example, scissor. If I'm going to use a scissor, more than likely they need to be at an appropriate distance. So, and by appropriate distance, I'm referring to the defender. The defender has to be an appropriate distance in proximity to me, not too close, not too far, for the skill to actually take effect. Because the whole point of a skill is to either beat or get away from an opponent. Okay, so we need to make sure that we understand this piece. You practice these, so you master the ball. We master the ball. We implement dribbling practice. We then apply this. So now that we're practicing the scissors, the body fakes, the escape moves, the change of direction, we can use them in 1v1 and then get them to understand why we're doing this. Okay, and then once we have these three down, we can then work on basic decision making, or we have the option of basic decision making. And this is, should I pass or dribble, and why? Well, you make that decision, or the player makes that decision, based on what is given in front of them. What is the defender giving me? Well, if they're giving me space, I'm going to dribble. If the defender is trying to block the dribble, so to speak, I should pass, right? If there's a player open, make the pass. There's a passing lane. So we then can start deciding, should I pass or dribble? Why? And this is what we teach. Okay, this is how I did it. Phase two. So once we had that down, we then still practice mastery of the ball, 1v1 implementation, all that. But we were also able to expand into passing, so the proper technique of it, method of approach, so what part of the foot and why. So do I use the inside? Do I use the toe? Do I use the instep? What outside of the foot? Why, how, when? Okay, and then choosing the correct technique, and then receiving go hand in hand. But which part of the foot and how to control the ball? So do you use the sole of the foot? Do you use the inside? Do you use the outside? If I want to go to the left, I receive with the left. If I want to go to the right, I receive with the right. Just basic receiving concepts that can now be taught because the players have appropriate skill to do so. Next one is once we have these two now locked, or at least to a certain level of proficiency, we can look at advanced decision making. So we call this, once the player has core skill developed, which is steps 1 through 6, they can then move into bigger game concepts like 7v7. So we're just trying to provide the tools for the players to be successful. Okay, now what the key thing about this is, you have to think bigger picture. You can't just think, the game at the weekend. No, the whole point of this was I had parents that were bought into being okay with their child failing, but also growing. And you're going to fail a lot more than you grow, especially at first. But once you start developing those patterns and the player starts becoming confident, then the sky is essentially the limit because everything becomes unlocked. Okay, now, so we talked about 45 minutes to an hour of the skill development. Well, then we did 45 minutes to 30 minutes. So if we did an hour technical training, we did 30 minutes. If we did 45 minutes of technical training, we did 45 minutes of implementation. So here it is right here. And our implementation was this every single time. 1v1s, 2v2s, and 3v3s. Now, there could also be like a 2v1, a 3v2, but principally with these numbers, it was always in tournament format or a competitive play is what I call it. So a key note to have here is when we look at a 1v1, so it's me versus you. It's one player versus one player. That means I have 100% responsibility to either win or lose without considering external factors like level of the opponent and stuff like that. I'm just talking about in a math equation of one player versus one player, I have 100% responsibility. Okay? So then that puts pressure on that player to win or lose. They can't blame anybody else except themselves. Well, I guess they could try and say, well, I slipped or the ball or this or whatever, but they can't look at somebody else for why they lost. Okay, when we go to 2v2s, you now have 50% of the responsibility to win or lose. That's important to note. Okay, and then 3v3, you have 33.3% repeating responsibility to win or lose. So obviously the numbers drop, right? You can maybe blame somebody else. But this is why, for me, especially in this country where we have a lot of privilege, 1v1 is so important because you teach the players to take responsibility. And I've seen this where kids like have a lot of technical skill, but they don't know how to apply it and they don't have the confidence. You could argue that might be because of how the coach behaves and, they get pulled off the field or they get screamed at for making a mistake. Granted, no problem. But if the player has that internal confidence in themselves because they've done 1v1 so much, that fear is usually diminished. So just some things to know. But this is what we created here from the implementation aspect. Okay, now, here's some keynotes to think about. And these are things that I did, that I tried to recreate with the environment. And there's a lot more that will go into this, but at least from starting at this point, the kids had freedom to play. So that didn't mean, or what that means is, I was not sitting there joysticking, berating, screaming. I gave them the freedom to make decisions. And then I would correct the behavior of the action as I saw fit. So if I saw something I didn't like, I would either freeze it or I would natural stoppage, whatever it was to make the correction. That's how I would do it. This was me a lot younger, by the way, at this point. So no joysticking, no screaming or yelling, minimal coaching. So I would make the coaching when necessary, but they have to go through it a lot of times themselves. And then what I've noticed is when a player makes a mistake, they typically know that they made a mistake. They don't need to be taught, or not even taught, told that they made the mistake. They made the mistake. They know they made the mistake. But don't deal with the outcome. I deal with the process. How can we correct it so we don't get to that point again? We put pressure to win. So this means responsibility to perform and get a result. So pressure to win. 1v1 is pressure. 2v2. And then we would do like consequence. So if they lose, they have a punishment. Very important to note. All phases of play, and this is key, and this is why I am not a fan of 7v7 and 9v9 in the current format of what we have available to our grassroots players, because they typically get pigeonholed to play one single position, which means they don't get to attack, defend, transition, and everything in between that. They're usually stuck doing one thing and one thing only. So we, by using this format of 1v1 to 3v3, they were able to do everything. Attack, defend, transition to attack, transition to defense, and they were not pigeonholed into one position. Last piece here, at least in this slide, constant movement and decision making. So because it was 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3, the players had to, or were forced to get more touches, be more involved in the game, score more goals, take more risk because they had to, and it just required that they had to make constant decisions where their brain had to always be active. They couldn't stand still like they can in 7v7 or 9v9, because in 7v7 you can pass the ball and do nothing, right? Whereas in 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, you have to be involved and you have to be engaged. Okay, and it's all constant decision making and mobility to find success. Now, key takeaways. Might want to screenshot this because I think a lot of times people undervalue the importance of really all three of these, but we'll take one each step at a time. First one is, it was 2.5 years of training to be ready from 9 to 12. Okay, so note that. 2.5 years of training, 4 times a week, hour and a half. Got it. Okay, he had extremely healthy nutrition. This, especially in this country, is so undervalued. Like, I cannot stress this enough. When I say they, I'm talking about his family, but he never ate fast food, ever ate fast food, didn't drink any soda. They bought like natural, farm, fresh fruit, food, vegetables, all that. So they were constantly eating healthy because they had a European background. Okay. He did virtual school. So Nick personally did virtual school, which meant he could train in the morning. He could then go home, eat, shower, whatever he had to do school. And then he had spare time to go train again or do whatever else he wanted to do, watch professional games, whatever. And then he also trained at night. So they all played for a club, whether they played for me or they played for somebody else. They had the option to do so. So they trained in the morning and then they went at night and played. Okay. Now, the breakdown of numbers. So this is again just about Nick. But I think this is important. Again, you might want to screenshot this, come back to it at some point, but understand what you're looking for in front of you. Okay. It's 1 hour, what we do of straight technical work on average. This equated to 520 technical sessions over 2.5 years. This equates to 31,200 minutes of technical training, which again is 520 hours of training. But that's a lot of time that we put in for just technique to get him ready for the European level. Okay. This number, because it's technical work, not implementation, does not include 30 minutes of 1v1 and other small-sided games played after 1 hour of technical training. So 31,000 minutes of training of technique. Okay, that's 520 hours of training, but there's more to this. Okay, this next part is so important. And as you can see with the picture in the background, it steps forward. So let's see what we're going to talk about now. This is important. Okay, because this is extremely undervalued. And this, for me, is not only what separated him, but also separated the group that we had. Because 5 out of the 6 left and went to professional clubs. I'm highlighting one person individually, but one guy, Nick Apwell, one guy, Keanu, went to FC Cincinnati. Edgar and his brother Ruben went to Orlando City Academy. And then the last one, Noah, he went overseas into England, was playing for regional clubs, and then was offered a trial with Crystal Palace. So he didn't take the opportunity because his visa expired. They had to come back. But where I'm going to go with this is maybe 2 times in our entire training process, and maybe 2 times, I had to ask him, and you'll see the face there, right? You're going to have a jaw drop. Give more effort. So maybe out of the 5 kids that I had, maybe 2 times I had to ask them to give more effort. So by effort is, please work harder. I'm begging you to work harder. Well, the issue that I'm seeing today, a couple of years later, is almost every single kid needs that reinforcement from an adult figure. Please give more effort. They, and he specifically, did not need it. And he specifically, because I'm talking about his process. I didn't have to ask them to give more effort. They just did it. And that is one of the biggest pieces I think is so important for parents and players to understand. If a parent or player has to ask to give more effort, if a parent or a coach has to ask the player to give more effort, they don't truly want it. What separated him, he truly wanted it every single day, and he busted his ass every single day. So that's a huge thing to note. Okay? This means he took action. He decided to work hard. It wasn't mom and dad. He got up in the morning to go train. Okay? Not because mom and dad or I asked him to. He did it. And this is so important for people to understand. You have to realize the importance of this. Okay? And then this next part, if this didn't shock you, this next part may shock you even greater. Okay? I always say development starts at home. So the numbers you're going to see in a moment might completely blow your mind. Okay, but let's start somewhere, and it starts at home. So these are now the breakdown of numbers training on his own. So this is him going out on his own free time after virtual school, or with his mom or with his dad or whatever process they were doing, and him spending additional time. And I broke this down with his parents. Okay. So this meant 30 minutes of additional self-work. Okay. He did 650 self-training sessions over 2.5 years. That equates to 19,500 minutes of additional technical training. That could be dribbling. That could have been passing. That could have been shooting. That could have been finishing. It could have been juggling. It didn't have to be like complex or a heavy, demanding exercise. It was just fundamentals. Okay? This equals 325 hours of training because it's basically half of the amount of sessions I did because it was 30 minutes. So and again, I want to make sure this is very clear. This was him choosing to do it. It wasn't mom and dad saying, let's go outside, let's go work on this, sweetie. This was, mom, dad, I want to go outside. I want to go work on my juggling. I want to go work on my finishing. I want to work on my shooting, my dribbling, my skills, whatever. He chose to do it on his own, and it paid dividends. Okay, but that's the mindset and mentality that we're lacking in this country, is that drive internally to say, you know what? I want this. He had it. Okay, so no one had to beg him or ask him to work. He chose to do it. And I can't keep stressing enough, but I hope you guys are understanding that he decided to do all this. And that is for me the separating factor, because I think the barrier to entry, so to speak, in terms of being successful has dropped significantly because the level of effort, the level of output has dropped. Just apply yourself like he did, and you can do many things. I can't guarantee that you'll be a professional. I can't guarantee that you'll be super successful. But what I can guarantee is the compounding effect will get you to a certain point. So he decided to take action. Okay, now we're going to go into some final thoughts. We're almost done here. So I'm going to take you through this, right? And I've talked about this a couple of times. Pay to play is not going to go in my lifetime. Probably not your lifetime. So this is the math. I sat down with my family to come up with this number. We broke it down is what I mean by it. My parents spent $82,593 on just my youth soccer career. Just me, not even my brother, just me. This is how much money my parents spent. So, knowing that you're going to spend this money or greater on your child's career, I'm imploring you, and really myself, is let's change the verbiage from pay to play to pay to learn. And the reason for that is it's a growth, it's a process of long-term gains, not just short-term wins. Okay, so for me, like when I have kids, like my brother just had a kid, we're looking at this and we've talked a couple of times, not too in depth, but it's all about value and what his son, my nephew, is going to gain from this entire experience. It's growth at the end of the day. It's providing that type of experience to go through it. Okay, and like I said, pay to play isn't going to go away in my lifetime. Value is the key thing. If you know you're going to spend $100K on your child just in soccer, wouldn't you want the most bang for your buck? Like, think about that from the outside perspective. You have to look back in 10 years and you go, man, I made this mistake. I made this mistake. Wouldn't you rather know that you spent money that was valued? Like you got value out of it, so you're not losing money versus what you go through now. So that's what you need to think about. And then here's some key actions to think about using the framework that I just showed you with this blueprint. Okay, find a coach who cares about development, who wants to develop. Okay, what happens from a result standpoint between 5 to 14 years old is literally irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Does it feel good to win? Yes, but you don't need to be so up in arm when your child doesn't win. It's okay. And in fact, in my tournament framework I showed you, the chance of you going to a final, all things being equal, based on the number of teams in the tournament, is 25% on average. That means you will go to a final 1 out of every 4 attempts. So just know that. Between 5 to 14, the same range. Play style and development is critical. How the team plays, so not kickball, but keeping the ball on the floor, and development is critical. I recommend that you read, watch, or listen to the Youth Soccer Playbook. The Youth Soccer Playbook is my blueprint, my roadmap of the exact steps that I would take with my son or daughter going through the entire system. And it's free. You can watch it, you can listen to it, or you can read it. The choice is yours. However you want to get there is your thing, but you can do that and you'll have a roadmap. There's no more excuses because that roadmap is from birth to hopefully signing a professional contract or a college scholarship. Okay? As a parent, make sure you educate yourself ASAP because an uneducated parent is somebody that's going to get ripped off. And you're probably thinking, well, Kyle's just being angry. That's not me being angry. I'm just being honest to you. Okay, last one. What league your child plays in is irrelevant until 15 years old. This is so important because everybody gets FOMO and goes nuts over these badges. But realistically, because you're not getting a college scholarship, your child's not getting a professional contract, what league they play in is irrelevant. But here's where the kicker becomes. You need to put them in a place where they're going to be challenged, assuming that they want to be challenged, but to be challenged to grow and have to deal with adversity. So it doesn't matter if it's the MLS Next, the ECNL, the GA, the ECNL-R. It doesn't matter if it's EA, EDP, GCF, whatever platform, as long as your child's being challenged and they're getting something out of it, that is the benefit. They need to be challenged, at least if they want to go to a higher level. Okay, and then the other thing I'll add too is like, there's only so many leagues. There's tons of clubs as well, but not everybody can be in MLS Next. Not everybody can be in ECNL. Not everybody can be in all the badges. Like my organization doesn't have badges and we still produce good players. But the key thing is you just got to focus on their child being challenged. Okay, I just hope you take that. Okay, some other final considerations. What does your child's training regimen look like? If they're going to practice and they're just scrimmaging, they're not being developed, regardless of what anybody tells you. Now, does it mean scrimmages isn't important? Of course, scrimmaging is important. Playing the game is important. But if your child practices 3 days a week and all 3 days are scrimmages, problem. Okay, especially if it's 77. What does their nutrition look like? Are they eating junk food, soda, chips, whatever? The nutrition is very important. Why be a competitive athlete or want to be a competitive athlete if you're going to give poor nutrition? Just doesn't make sense. Especially if the financial resources to do better. Who wants it, parents or the player? So are you forcing little Jimmy, little Johnny to get there, to work hard? Hey, I need you to give more, or is that coming from them internally, like it did with Nick? Do they have responsibilities? So I put a framework together that said, do you want to help your child level up? I'm giving it to you again right now. It's put the pressure on them to have responsibility. So they have to take care of their uniform, their cleats, their shin guards, their water, and their bag, and a ball maybe, to go to practice. Not mom and dad. You have them take care of that. They have to bring it to you. You can double check it to make sure it's all there, but it's their responsibility to get their equipment ready. And that way, you're putting that pressure on them to start growing up to take responsibility. At least that's what I would do. Are they in virtual homeschool? I believe this is one of the biggest changes coming in the market right now. Long story short, I believe personally that club soccer needs to die because I don't believe club soccer in current format, the way it's structured, the way it operates, will develop players on a consistent basis to break the system. By break the system, I mean get out of the system. So if we can't break the system, virtual and homeschool works because I have proof of it, right? Not an easy thing to do, but having that platform, as long as the player wants it, is a huge step in the right direction. Last one would be, does your child live, eat, and breathe football? Okay. Is it their life? Like when I was a kid growing up, football was my life. I did everything around it, especially at a young age. And I do want to come back to this last part about 5 with the homeschool, virtual school. This is my personal take. You don't have to agree with me in any way, shape, or form. I don't have kids, but when I do have kids, based on the current public school landscape, my son or daughter will not be entering public school. We're either going to do private school or we're going to do homeschool. It's going to be one of the two options, but we're going to be skipping this public school piece. Okay, so just understand that. Now, very quickly, I'm going to give you a personal example. When I was U10, so I was 9, maybe 10 years old, I played in a tournament called the Jefferson Cup, one of the biggest. It's still very big now, I think, but at the time it was one of the biggest tournaments in the country. And when I played in this tournament, my team won U10. And my dad, I love my dad to death. It was funny. Probably 2 months ago, my dad still has the trophy of when my team won. I think it was called Lee Mount Vernon at the time. Lee Mount Vernon Spirit won the Jefferson Cup. And my dad asked me 2 months ago, hey, do you want the trophy? And I'm like, I looked at him, I looked at the trophy, and I'm like, Dad, I love that. I think it's funny. But that trophy means more to you than it does to me. Like, I don't even remember at the time that I won. So I looked at it and go, oh yeah, I remember winning this. But I don't, like, it doesn't play in my mind like, hey, you guys remember when I won the U10 Jefferson Cup? No, of course not. But I do remember, though, playing semi-professionally. I do remember, though, playing college soccer, Division II. I do remember, though, representing the United States men's national team at the Futsal World Cup in 2019. I do remember training Luis Nani. I do remember training Kawan Bazil. Right? Those are things that you cannot take away from me. You can't take away the Jefferson Cup either, but I look at that as a stepping stone to help me get to where I'm at now, winning or losing, because I lost plenty of tournaments too, by the way. In fact, I've lost more tournaments than I've won, but I still got to a certain level. I didn't reach the top and play in the pinnacle of the game and nothing like that, of course, but I lost more than I won to get where I got to, just to keep that as reference. But no, I don't have the trophy if you're asking. My dad has it, or my family has it. So, a couple other final thoughts. I would be realizing that instead of paying to play, paying to learn, I'm paying for progress, challenges, setbacks, hardships, growth, and experience. Notice I didn't say wins or losses. Okay? I need to be okay with my child losing, failing, struggling, and learning to overcome adversity. I'm going to think bigger picture and not just about the game on the weekend. And then last one, if my child really is a beast, and this is important, I'll make a whole framework about this as well. If my child really is a beast, and I hit the wrong button, sorry. If my child really is a beast, the big organizations, so what I call the cash cows, will pay for him or her to play 100% free. In Orlando alone, just Orlando, in the last couple of years, I've seen this now happen about 18 times where a bigger organization will pay for a kid based on merit for them to go play for their team. They're going to pay for their uniform. They're going to pay for their training fees, coach fees, travel fees. It's all going to be waived. The only thing they'll probably have to pay for is like hotel, maybe some food, right? So basic fees that you have to cover, unless they ride with somebody else. But they're going to be sponsored on merit because the organization feels that they have that big of an impact. They can maybe attract more players. That's going to help the team win. Again, bring more kids indirectly to the program. So they will do this, and I've seen it more and more now because they want better players. Okay, now, if you want to experience the type of training that got Nick and other players out of the system, we are running our Beast Summer training that starts in June and July. There are weekly options and monthly options. This is all based in Orlando, Florida. So I have a QR code here that you can scan. If you want to experience the same type of training that I put them through to get out of the system, we're going to be running that all summer. So you can just scan this code, and that way you can fill out the application to then enter in June and July. We're going to run the entire summer. So June and July, top to bottom. It's going to be, again, you can do it monthly. So if you live in Orlando, do it monthly. If you want to travel here to experience it, you can do it weekly, 2 weeks, whatever you want. We can work it out, no problem. But we're going to be running this at our indoor facility at High Soccer Arena to showcase how we've done this, and you can experience it personally with your child if you'd like or not. So here's the QR code one more time. Scan it. It's a form that you have to fill out. And that way you have your information. You can select the weeks that you want to come, and then we'll follow up with you to get you all set up. And that's the main premise here, guys. It's our Beast Summer training so you can experience what they went through for 2.5 years, 4 times a week. Now, last piece, thank you for following me as well and listening to this content. If you found value from this, I would greatly appreciate you sharing this with somebody. I think it's important because education is key. I truly believe that, and now more and more I'm investing more into my education to grow, to understand business, life, sports, whatever it is, to be better in the business. Okay, but here, if you could follow me on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, you can, again, use the QR code, scan it, take it, and move it on. And I hope you, watching this, listening to this, found tremendous value from this video. And this is the framework that we built, that we use to get 5 players out of the system. So just keep that in mind when it comes to trying to get to the next level. I appreciate you guys. I will see you very soon. I'll leave it up for a couple of seconds real quick. That way you can do what you need to do and hopefully take